Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. You've got a responsibility to go back to Lodabar. Your work's not done just because you made it to the palace. Oh, bless the name of the Lord. But you've got a responsibility to help somebody else make it across. Thank you, Jesus. Don't pull up the ladder because you climbed to the top. Don't blow up the bridge because you made your way across. Thank you, Jesus. But reach your hand back down the ladder and pull somebody else up out of Lodabar. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. That's the name of the Lord. Somebody gotta tell themselves it's all right if you got it now. Just hold it for me. I'll be there to get it after a while. Oh, bless the name of the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. You've got to make up in your mind that what God has for me, it is for me. I might not have it right now, may not get it next week. You might try to stop me from getting it, but if God said it's mine, I want you to know after a while, I'm going to get what belongs to me. Sometimes God got to strip what you got so you don't depend on yourself. He got to take away from you so you understand how to depend on El Shaddai. Come on in here. Thank you, Jesus. Our young people are dying. Cracked out. Suicide. Homicide. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to WTCC. You're listening to the spoken word with Bishop Talbert Swan II. And as usual, we'll be telling it like it is through cultural idioms and nuances that shape the order, ethos, and chaos of the African-American experience. Words have their own vitality. They shape their own consciousness and create their own context for interpreting social and spiritual reality. The spoken word contains the power to reshape the landscape of society. It is 3 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. And I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in on this morning and invite you right now to tell a friend, tell somebody that the bishop is on the air. I need you all to like right now. Click that like button. Click that on YouTube. Click that subscribe button. Those of you on Periscope, double tap that screen, send those hearts up in the air. And then I need everybody on all platforms to share to share. Let somebody know we're on the air. Listen, a lot has been happening around the nation, but also even around our region. And I want to talk today about the necessity for collaboration in justice movements. Unfortunately, when we begin to move toward justice and we began to act in accordance with dictates of our conscience around pushing for justice, many times our opponents try to subvert the movement, and what they do is they infiltrate, and then sometimes our own people will get in the way. And unfortunately, there are some folk who are in this not for the right reasons. Um, we're about freedom, justice, and equality. We're about um, um, seeking redress for legitimate grievances that we have as a people, uh, and trying to get those grievances answered. But there's some folk who are out here legitimately trying to make a name for themselves, trying to get notoriety, et cetera, et cetera. And that's always been the case. And it's no different on today. And so I want to talk about the necessity for collaboration in this movement. It's not about who's getting credit and all of that kind of stuff. It's really about the movement, y'all. It's really about getting substantive results that will address the grievances that we have as a people. So tell a friend, tell somebody. The Bishop is on the air. 413-337-1867. I almost said the number to the station. We're still not in the station because of the pandemic. So we're still broadcasting remotely. 413-337-1867 is the number here. And we'll open up the phone lines momentarily. But let somebody know we're on the air. We'll be right back. Don't you dare touch that dial. Don't you go over and surf anywhere else. I need you right here. We're going to have a good conversation, family. Stay with us.
You say you sold out because black women are loud and crass. What? And your precious white woman is the epitome of class? Are you so blind that you cannot see? That pale girl child ain't got nothing on me. For hundreds of years we have stood by your side, accepted your flaws and allowed you your pride, bore your children and cleaned up your mess, satisfied your lust and always settled for less. We have stayed in the background and allowed you to lead, trusting in your strength and ability to succeed, never getting the praise and credit we deserve, but having the courage, the will, and the nerve, for being the backbone that has kept it together for you and our children in all kinds of weather. And now suddenly you say we're not good enough for you. We forced you to sell out because of the things we did. Well, where was that white woman when that white man you hate was cracking the whip? In the boardroom, the warehouse, and on the slave ship. She stood by his side and didn't say a word, waiting for her own chance to rule and be heard. And now it's her you turn to and treat like a queen, and me and my sisters you choose to demean. Well, hold up, wait a minute, and stop the damn bus. Because there are a few things I need to remind you about us. Listen up. A more beautiful creature God never made than an African woman, no matter her shade. High yellow, red bone, or cocoa brown, we are more than worthy of wearing a crown. Ebony, mocha, or black as the night, it is we who have always shared in your plight. We are passionate, spiritual, loving, and kind. A more generous heart you'll never find than the one that beats inside the body of a Nubian queen, the hardest working, loving, giving woman you've ever seen. For we give and forgive until there's little left. Then we're forced to put up our guard to avoid your theft. The theft of our hearts and our trust, the very nature of our soul, by our so-called brothers who are just playing a role. And you wonder why some of us act as we do? Take a look in the mirror, because the answer is you. It's not enough that the white man has always tried to keep us down, but our own men act as though they'd love to see us drown. And white women have never invited us to join their equal rights struggle. So we're out here alone with a million things we juggle, raising the children that black men leave behind and dealing with the racism of the daily corporate grind. Damn, it's no wonder some of us are loud. Hell, we're just trying to be heard. In a world where everyone, including our men, ignore our every word. Where are the brothers who understand a black woman's worth? Right here, who will protect and stand by us, for we are the salt of this earth. We birthed you, raised you, and showered you with love. It was we who taught you to love your creator above. We gave you all we had and taught you to be men. Open your eyes, it is us, your black sisters, not Bo Derek's kind who rate a perfect 10. And one final word for the sellout to claim to be brothers. When you turn your back on us, you disrespect your mothers. Did you hear that?
90.7. Good morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the spoken word. This is Bishop Talbert Swan II. That was Rhonda Swan on that spoken word piece, Response to the Sellout. You can go check that out anywhere you stream music. Check out her other spoken word pieces on there as well. 413-337-1867. Do me a favor, rep your city, rep your town. Let me know where you're chiming in from. Love to know where you guys are coming in from across different parts of the United States, but also different parts of the world. Always good to hear from those that are across the ocean and other places. So rep your city, rep your town. Once again, share, tap it, share it. Let folk know that you're here and that we're on the air. And we've got to talk family business. Got to talk family business. So, when we talk about justice work, when we talk about civil rights work, when we talk about the movement, when we talk about the push for justice and the various tactics that are used to bring attention to the issues of concern and to push the envelope and to push those that are in power and authority to do the right thing, to bring about systemic change. And we're talking about some sustained effort. We're talking about sacrifice. We're talking about selflessness in order to be effective. And what we need to learn to do, brothers and sisters, is to make the movement ours, even when we think we are not directly affected. One of the biggest concerns I've had in over 30 years of justice advocacy, from the time I was in high school and an activist on college campus trying to push the University of Massachusetts to divest out of South Africa, dealing with young black men who were incarcerated, and the myriad things that I've done and been involved with over the past 3 decades. One of the most frustrating has been to hear the rhetoric of people who come into some level of consciousness and feel compelled to get involved, who then want to call into question the tactics, strategies of those who have dedicated their lives and sacrificed themselves for this movement when they were sitting on the sidelines until it directly affected them. What do I mean? I mean, There are some who have a proclivity to never get involved in anything if it doesn't knock on their door, if it doesn't affect them, if it's not their son who got shot, if it's not their child who got abused by the police, if it's not them or their family members who were discriminated against or wrongly dismissed from a job or did not get an opportunity because of racial prejudice, if it was not them who was abused or dehumanized directly, they kind of sit on the sidelines and watch. And I'm not saying everybody has to be a social justice warrior, but there's some way that everybody can be involved. Even if you're not on the front lines, even if you're not out on the streets, even if you're not organizing, you can attend something, you can write a check to something. There are all kinds of ways that you can get involved in some kind of way. But there are many who sit on the sidelines as long as they're not directly affected. And then what happens is as soon as injustice knocks on their door, and if you're black living in America, at some point in time, it's going to knock on your door, knock on the door of your family members. It's going to affect you in some kind of way. You can't help it. I mean, it's in the DNA of America. It's in the atmosphere that we breathe. White supremacy, injustice, anti-black bigotry is what makes America go round. And so you can't live your life as a black person and not be affected by it. So at some point, it's going to come your way. And what happens many times is when it finally knocks on the door of some folk, then they become gung-ho. They want to protest. They want to do social action. They want to call for accountability. And then they start asking, where is everybody? Where are the preachers? Where are the politicians? Where's this one? Where's that one? Where's the other one? They start critiquing those who have been in the movement, their strategies. Why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? Why are you doing it this way and that way? And this newfound energy that they have is strictly because injustice knocked on their door, not because they have all of a sudden had an epiphany and decided, I need to get involved. But it's my son now. He's got to go to court. He got knocked upside the head. She got shot. They got affected. And now that it's at my house, everybody needs to get involved. But where were you when it was someone else's son that got shot? Where were you when the police abused someone else's child, someone else's father? Where were you, when someone else got fired, even on your own job, and you knew it was wrong? And so I ask you to be cognizant of the fact, MLK said injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, that you can't sit on the sidelines when these horrors of injustice are affecting people all around you and do nothing and sit there in your apathy. And then all of a sudden, when it comes knocking on your door, have this expectation that everybody and their mama is supposed to get involved because it affects you. That's complete hypocrisy, brothers and sisters. And too many of you are in that frame of mind. I'm just going to keep it, as the young folks say, 100. I've seen it over and over again. I've seen people enter into the movement briefly because it affected them. I've seen their critique. I've seen them decide they wanted to criticize everybody and their mama. I've been through it, and my question is always, well, bruh, I've been out here 25 years fighting for people like your child. Where the heck you been? And now all of a sudden, when it hits your doorstep, you want to come and be in charge of the movement. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. And so you've got to make the movement yours, even when you are not directly affected. It takes a village to raise a child, to raise a family, and to bring about systemic change. It takes all of us. Um, it can't just be, me and mine. And I understand that when things come your way, you know, you've gotta act. I understand when things come your way, you want people to be involved, but always remember you didn't have that energy when it wasn't at your house. And then what I need you to do is I need you to keep that same energy after the season has passed that it's been at your house. Because what also happens is folk come along, they get involved for the moment, they'll jump into the march and all that stuff as long as we're seeking justice for them. And then when it's run its course, they retreat back to their lives as it was. And they don't keep that same energy for when someone else is the hashtag, or we need justice for someone else's family member or child. And so, this is about all of us. This isn't about, just get involved if it affects me. Um, Injustice, once again, anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And we've got to keep that in mind, brothers and sisters, as we go about this justice work. The other thing I need to tell you, um, sisters and brothers, is justice work is not done for notoriety. That's not what this is about. My former pastor used to say, much work can be done if we don't care who gets the credit. There are far too many people out here who want a headline, who want to get credit, who want some notoriety, who want their face on the news or their name in the paper. And that's what this thing is really about for them. That's not what this is about. This is about sacrifice. This is about sustained effort, even when your name is never called. This is about enduring. Listen, over the years, I've been at gunpoint. I've been threatened. I've been profiled. I've been followed by the police all around town. I've had to send my family down south for a while because of the threats that we've gotten. I get threats on a weekly basis, threats to hang me from trees, to shoot me, to put a bullet in my head, to harm my family. They've threatened to burn my church down, to blow it up. I've gotten threats from police officers, from other people in the law enforcement community. I got a threat from the district attorney that he was going to prosecute me for something I never did, unless I apologize for criticizing the police. I've been followed around my own neighborhood and pulled over for no reason. I was pulled over one time 4 times on my way to the gym, 4 separate times in the same city on my way to the gym. Just pure harassment comes your way when you're dedicated to this work. I mean, it happens. And it's not just locally or region. I get threats from all around the nation. I've got 4 open FBI cases right now for people threatening my life. People in Georgia, people in Texas, people in Florida, of different parts of the nation, because they don't like the work that I do. They don't like my voice being out there in the public sphere. I've had family members affected. My children have been affected. People have denied opportunities to my children because they don't like me or the work that I stand for. I remember my son was going for a job at a local college here, at American International College, I'll call it out, and sailed through the test, the interview, did a fine job, and someone came to me to let me know, someone affiliated with the college who worked in the department, that the head of that department, who was in charge of the hiring, said, yeah, Talbert, which was my son, is a great candidate. He'd make a great addition, but no way in hell I'm going to hire Reverend Swan's son. Things like that happen when you dedicate your life to the movement. They'll take it out on your wife, on your children, on your grandchildren, on other family members. There's a real sacrifice that comes. This isn't glitz and glamour. This isn't about attention. This isn't about headlines. This isn't about getting your name in the newspaper. That's not what this is about. You know, I remember police used to sit outside my house. One time I had my wife who was cooking breakfast. I told her to make a plate. She was like, "What? What are you talking about? Just make a plate. Make an extra plate." And I put it in some foil and brought it out to the police officer and said, "Since you're gonna sit in front of my house to try to intimidate me, why don't you have a bite to eat?" You have to develop a sense of humor with this thing because you'll go crazy otherwise. Because the tactics that they try to employ, to intimidate you. I've had grants taken away from my nonprofit, from my church, because elected officials didn't agree with positions that I took and thought that they could punish me by removing resources, because that's what they do. It's like Nick Cannon said some things that ticked folk off. So Viacom fired him. That's the way they react. What we're going to do is we're going to take your livelihood. We're going to harass you in that way. I stood up against, matter of fact, the current administration years ago when they first came into power on an issue around a black contractor who had the towing contract. And as a result, they took a CDBG grant for our Teens for AIDS Prevention program. Lied and said it was for other reasons, but I know what it was for. It was political retaliation. We've never applied since. We've never went after city money since, because I intend to be an independent black man, one who you can't hold carrots over my head and keep me silent because you're going to threaten to take some crumbs away from me. It was a $15,000 grant. I can't be bought for $15,000. My integrity is worth way more than that. And far too many of our so-called black leaders, they can be purchased for cheap. We're going to take your $5,000 CDBG grant. We're going to take your $10,000 over here if you don't be quiet for massa. Some years ago, I looked through my city's draft action plan for CDBG money that comes into the city. About $5 million comes in, $4 million for community development, about $1 million for personal services. And I looked on the personal services side to see who was getting what. And I calculated how much every organization that serviced the Mason Square, predominantly black area of our city, were getting. Services about 25,000 residents. And in total, between every organization, everyone, Martin Luther King Center, the Girls Club Family Center, the Children's Study Home, the Urban League, all of them combined were getting $46,000. Every one of them combined was getting $46,000. One organization in the North End that services about 7,000 residents was getting 5 times that, one organization. So I question, how in the world does the black community get a measly $46,000 when it's the negative status indicators for our community, for the most part, that are driving the numbers that make the formula for how much money the city gets. And so I tried to organize the black leaders of those organizations to say, hey, we need to go sit down with the city and ask, why the hell are we getting a measly $46,000 between all of us? And I could not get any of them to agree to meet with the city officials on that issue. So I canceled the meeting, because I'm not going to be out there advocating for you if you're not going to advocate for yourself. And I couldn't for the life of me understand how losing a $5,000 or $10,000 grant, because that's for the most part what they were getting, can silence you. How can that keep your mouth shut? Are we really that cheap? Are we really that cheap? 413-337-1867. Some folks are out here um, trying to do this work, or at least pretending to do this work to make a name for themselves, or to get attention on social media, or to get a gig or a contract or a job. That's the reality of it. We saw a whole crew of people who gained notoriety or when the Black Lives Matter movement rose up after Ferguson, Mike Brown, well, after Trayvon Martin and then Mike Brown, um, and a number of activists who have gained notoriety, who have wound up getting millions of followers on social media, book deals, radio shows, speaking engagements across the country, making goo gobs of money because they made a name for themselves off the blood and the death of young black men. That's real. That's real. The blue check brigade, the blue checks on social media, who are social justice advocates, have gained notoriety, and there are many. It happened, it just happened that way, and they're really dedicated to the movement. But others, they're more dedicated to their own personal upliftment and notoriety than they really are of the movement. And there are those out there who are now modeling this, who are now saying, "Hey, you know what? I can gain some notoriety. I can make a name for myself. I can get some followers. I can, this can happen and that can happen if I, get out here trenches and get my name in the paper and all of that kind of stuff." And so there are some who are really out here for that reason. There are some who are staging things just for reality TV, and their form of reality TV is what they can post on social media. This is not what this is about. This is not an opportunity to go live at City Hall, or to go live here or go live there, just so folks say, ooh, look at everything that they're doing. There are times where you do go live. There are times where you do draw attention to what's going. But if all this thing is about is going live and getting a name for yourself and getting folks to clap their hands for you, you're in it for the wrong reason. You're in it for the wrong reason. Once again, much work can be done if we don't care who gets the credit. At the end of the day, what difference does it make who gets the credit if we get results for our people? That's what this is about. It's about getting results for our people. It's not about you getting credit. It's not about me getting credit. It's not about making a name for ourselves. It's changing the game for the betterment of Black people, period. That's what this is. And so what we've got to do, we got to check some egos. Beyonce said, "I love his big ego." That ain't this. That ain't this. This ain't about your ego. Okay. This is about our people. This is about getting results for our people, not about your ego. And so we got to check our egos at the door. And I get it. Everybody got an ego. Everybody wants to be accepted. Everybody, wants their 15 minutes of fame and all of that, but not on the backs of the suffering of our people. During the civil rights movement of the 40s, 50s, 60s, they had to figure out a way to check their egos. And there was a lot of big egos, man. But to work together and to be effective, sometimes they had to check their egos out the door. And there was falling out even then. But remember, most of the major things that happened based on collaboration, people coming together, checking their egos at the door, all that kind of stuff. Um, those who study history, you'll know the term Big Six from the 60s. It's a term that was used to describe the six most prominent Black civil rights leaders during that time. It included A. Philip Randolph, who was a labor organizer, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, James Farmer of the Congress of Racial Equality, of what we call CORE, John Lewis, who just passed away, of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, and Whitney Young of the National Urban League, and Roy Wilkins of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. It included all of them. They had to come together. They were the linchpins of power behind the movement. They were responsible for organizing the March on Washington in 1968. Now, I'm not saying they didn't have their differences. They did. But ultimately, to bring about real change, they had to come together and collaborate. We wouldn't have Voting Rights Act and those types of things if people like MLK didn't set differences aside with President LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, and work with others to make these things happen. This isn't just about making the noise. This isn't just about your post on Facebook Live. This is about results, because at the end of the day, let me tell you something. White folks don't care that you came and made noise if they don't have to change what they're doing. They can live with that. We've been making noise for a long time. They don't care about that. If you make a bunch of noise, but they don't have to do anything any different, they don't really care. The noise making and all of that is once again to bring attention, agitation, making a demand. But ultimately, we need to see some things happen. And we've got to continue to work even when they're not writing stories about it. Even when they're not coming with their camera crews and putting you on the news. Sustained behind the scenes effort has to continue. Joe Madison always says the difference between a moment and a movement is sacrifice. If the only time you're willing to come to the table is when you can get some attention, accolades, you can get your picture out there, you can do a photo op, you can go live, you're in it for the wrong reason. Changes in legislation, changes in policy, changes in practices happen with a whole lot of behind the scenes meetings and negotiating and pressuring and things that you never saw on camera, that you never read about in the newspaper. Lawsuits being filed, things being done in courts and stuff happening you don't know about. All of those things combined collaboratively to bring about change. I always use this example in our city when we fought for ward representation. It was a 12-year process. They weren't writing stories about what we were doing every day. Not only was it a 12-year process, it was a collaborative effort. It wasn't just Brother Swan. It was Brother Swan and Michael Ambusi and Arise, and it was Maria Morales Lobo and the Spanish American Union. It was Tom Hidalgo. It was Gumersinder Gomez. It was Shalon Brown. It was, it was so many of us who came together and filed lawsuits and all the stuff you didn't read about. You read about us, going down, speaking out at City Hall and all that, but you don't know the countless hours sitting with lawyers and depositions and going to the Department of Justice and the behind the scenes work for the Citizens Initiative petition and all of that happened over 12 years to finally pressure the administration, who knew that we were going to win a second lawsuit, and they didn't know what form of government the federal courts would prescribe. They didn't know, because we were asking for just 8 ward counselors. They didn't know if they do a combination of 8 and 3, 8 and 1, 8 and 0. And so rather than allow the courts to make the decision, they finally, under pressure, passed the current system of government that we have, with 8 ward and 5 at large on the city council, and a similar makeup on the school committee. That was 12 long years of people's lives dedicated to that one issue, but there are so many of us who run away after the news cycle is over, after they're no longer writing stories about it, after we can't get our picture in the paper anymore. We've got to do better than that, brothers and sisters. It's about more than that. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Bishop. How are you, sir?
I'm good. You?
Good. I'm blessed. Praise be to God. I was just listening to your conversation because I've witnessed in this upcoming situation with George Floyd, there have been a lot of people now who have been talking in cold speak and then playing the game as it was supposed to be played. Now all of a sudden they have gotten a voice. People are calling themselves having Black Lives rallies downtown City Hall, but they're selling and goods and all of this, and they don't really have a great idea of what's going on. And a lot of times of some of the people that are on in our community, we have not talked about the divide that has been in our community for 40 years, where people's voices have not been heard. People's voices have not been able to come to the table. And so you have some frustration going on where people, like myself, when I ran for city council, I got no support from the Black community in the early 2000s. People were saying that I was angry, I was mad, I was radical. You got to play the game this way, and if you don't play the game this way, you're not going to be heard. And now with this new sense of freedom that we have because of George Floyd's death, people who are not Bishop Swan, people who are not Tracy Whitfield, people who have these anxieties, their voices are not being heard. So they're going out on social media and they're doing these things because we haven't honestly sat down in our community and talked about some of the gatekeepers and poverty pimps that are Black who have been getting money to. In the 1980s, when I was selling heroin in Virgin Circle, and they had all these money to come out and talk to us, nobody in the Black community in the 1980s, late 70s and 80s, with the Cedar money and all of these things, nobody came to us in Virgin Circle. Nobody came to us on Eastern Avenue. And so it's like an exploitation of our pain and suffering. So I go to jail for 25 years. I get out and I want to be a part of some solutions, but because I don't have the right degree, I don't have the right language that I speak, people are hesitant to deal with me because I'm angry. I've been given all these negative connotations. And so people in my community have made a purpose whispering about me that don't deal with him. He's angry. He's frustrated. He's bitter. And so people like myself and Nasir Islam and David Lewis and all the rest of us who have some experience in gang violence, who have some experience in crack selling, in heroin selling, we want to be a part of the narrative of what we can do to make solutions. I'm a retired veteran, so I don't need any money. I'm 100% disabled. So I don't do this, and others don't do it for a job or for money. We do it because I got nephews out in the streets right now, Bishop, and I have to be honest, that are carrying guns, that are selling drugs, and I'm trying to work with them and other people in the community that people don't go to Terrence Street. People don't go to Andrew Street.
Mm-hmm.
People don't go to Knox Ave. People don't go to those places. And so we have these programs. I'm sorry.
Let me say this. First of all, I want to say that I appreciate brothers like you, brothers like David Lewis, and others who, in spite of the frustration of how you were received in the community, and many times, you know, as I stated earlier, the Big Six and all those, they had their differences. You and I had differences through the years, but at the end of the day, we've got to see beyond our own egos and see that we work better together for the betterment of our community. And so I appreciate the fact that you all have been able to be resilient enough to stay involved and to keep speaking truth to power and to continue to support the efforts that are happening out there so that you can help people who have been through or are going through similar experiences that you're going through, because folks like you are critical to the movement. You know, my grandmother used to say, go in there, can't tell been there how to get there. And so many times the most effective voice in some arenas are those who experienced it, those who can talk to young men and women who have been incarcerated or who are out there on the streets right now. Most effectively are those who have been there and done that and can tell them the road that they're going down. And so voices like you all's voices are critical. And so I want to encourage you and people like you to continue along the efforts that you're doing and don't get discouraged.
Thank you, sir. One other thing, Bishop, I wanted to say, like we have this reentry program that the mayor is getting ready to bring into the community with the reentry program. And one of the things that's a failure about that type of thing is because when we get out of Ludlow, the last thing we want to do is to go to AISS and to be given services from correctional officers with khakis and white skirts on. And you said something interesting. Those people that come out, to Ludlow, Walpole, they need to come to institution community where we can have collaboration with the probation officer, collaboration with the sheriff's department, where Spring of Hope and the Nation of Islam and other institutions of MLK and other institutions in our community, instead of having New North Citizen Council be the conduit for funds and resources because they say we're not solvent. We'll never get solvent if our tax dollars are not given to our community institutions to do the work that needs to be done. And so this is vitally important as we begin to go to the next phase. Like Spring of Hope should be one of the conduits that receive Black tax dollars so that we can do the work in our community. And we are free now to voice those concerns to the powers that be. We don't need progressive white people standing over us, holding our resources, and then telling us what we need to do. And then if we don't do it the way they want us to do it, somehow they hold our funds against us. So I think that that's something that we could be able to put on the table in these next rounds of negotiations with the powers that be. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for your call. 413-337-1867. There's some of you who were trying to get in on the conversation. The phone lines are open for you. Once again, 413-337-1867 is the number if you want to get in. A lot of good points made by the previous caller. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Hello, hi. I'm not going to say my name. Those that know me will know me.
All right.
But I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
The flyer that went around about the protest at Nathanville list, it had a couple of concerns listed on that flyer. But to me, when we got out there Saturday, the dress code issue was addressed, but everything else was swept under the rug because he gave up $6,500.
Now, what do you mean was swept under the rug?
It was no mention of the hundreds of thousands of dollars that bar has cost the city. It was no mention of okay, y'all gonna take money. It was no mention of y'all saying to them, oh, maybe y'all should hire some black bartenders. Maybe y'all should hire some black security. How do you? They were not called out on nothing, but because again, I'm only speaking for me.
Yeah, but how do you know that? How do you know that?
Well, I don't know, but I'm going by what was presented there. What was presented there is he gave a check, and we talked about the dress code. He was not called out Saturday morning about the hundreds of thousands of dollars that bar has cost the city. He was not called out about that at all on Saturday.
Okay. So thank you I appreciate your call. I'm going to talk about it, and if you listen, you'll get a better understanding. Thank you for your call. So I'll deal with this one directly because I've been involved in some of those conversations. First of all, if you remember correctly, before Saturday's protest at Nathanville, we had a protest back in June. And at that protest is when we went there and all of the buildings were boarded up. And we addressed in substance our concerns about the way Black people were treated there. We addressed our concerns in substance about the 4 Black men that were beaten, the infamous Nathanville case that resulted in the indictment of 14 current and former police officers. We dealt with in substance our consternation over the police commissioner, Cheryl Clapprood, reinstating 5 of those officers who were under criminal indictment, and the mayor sanctioning that action. We addressed that in substance. And after that, if you remember correctly, the mayor gave an apology, a public apology to the residents, to the Black community in particular. They resuspended those officers upon our demands. They announced the formulation of an Office of Racial Equity. That was part of the pressure put on by the residents. Those cases are working their way through the court system. The protest on this past Saturday was dealing specifically with the dress code. It was dealing specifically with what we thought was a racist dress code that targeted African Americans. Everything listed on there was part of Black culture, hip hop culture, young Black culture. And basically, I said myself that you may as well put up a sign that says whites only or no niggers allowed. I was very candid, as were others, as were many others in terms of calling them out on that issue. When we met with Nathanville, we met with the majority owner. Now, keep in mind, Mr. Gossman, who you heard from on Saturday, is not the same owner who was indicted. He's not the former police officer who was indicted and whose case is going through the court system. That's a different owner. And we met with him about the dress code. He took it down, said it would never go up again. He issued a public apology. Yes, he did agree to donate money to pay for the Black Lives Matter mural. And Councilor Tracy Whitfield let you know in no uncertain terms, this is not a payoff. This is not a keep our mouths shut. We're still going to hold that establishment accountable. And we did talk behind the scenes. In substance, Councilor Justin Hurst leading the charge in terms of wanting to see them help support other Black businesses and ensure that Black folks are hired and welcomed and into that establishment. Those conversations were had behind the scenes. See, this is what I'm talking about when I talk about collaboration and efforts and stuff. Everything that's done in the movement is not done for Facebook Live. All negotiations are not done. You don't do negotiations in front of the camera. You don't post all your negotiations on social media. The result of the apology and the donation for the mural, all of that was negotiated behind the scenes. It was announced in public, but it took a behind the scenes meeting to make that happen. Now, just because there hasn't been any announcements in terms of those other things does not mean those conversations are not being held. It does not mean that we are not holding them accountable for those other issues, because we clearly are. So I want you to understand, and anybody who knows me and knows the people who are involved in this, you understand I can't be bought for $6,500. I just told you about $15,000 grant being taken, and I'm worth more than 15 grand, and these little small piddly grants here and there that people give. I can't be purchased like that. And if you're going to buy me, it's going to take a whole lot more than $6,500. So please don't insult and think that we've been bought for $6,500, and that if Nathan Bill engages in actions that we deem to be racist or inappropriate to our community, that $6,500 shields them from our scrutiny. No, we'll be back there tomorrow, if that's the case. So, ma'am, please understand that is hardly the case. 413-337-18. Good morning, caller. Caller, you're on the air.
Morning.
You're on the air.
I have a question. I was just wondering if the solutions that we are currently working on, are they enough? I think that the things that we've seen throughout history, the solutions that we've asked for throughout history, I just wonder if they're enough. And if we continue to go down that route, go ahead.
Well, see, this struggle is a continuation. This isn't a sprint; it's a marathon. Mm-hmm. And marathon runners run their leg and then they pass the baton to the next runner. We just grabbed the baton from the generation that came before us. We grabbed the baton from the Ben Swans and the MLKs and so many others who struggled before we got on the scene. And when we're moving off the scene, we're passing the baton on to someone else. And so, no, it's not enough. We can't do everything that's all encompassing to bring about the total change that we need. But we do what we can, and we pass the baton on to someone else to do a little bit more. And I think that we also need to realize that people are working in different areas. There are some who are working in prison reform. There are some who are working on Black mortality rates. There are some who are working on the health disparities that affect Black people. So you have people who are working in various pockets to bring about change simultaneously. And so we can't look at one little segment of activists and wonder if they're doing everything that can be done, because they can't do everything. They've got to work in their silo as well as other folks who work in other areas as well.
I understand that. I guess for me, in my head, the goal is to dismantle white supremacy in every single facet that it exists.
Absolutely.
So you have a bar where white supremacists literally are congregating and are literally beating and demeaning and damaging Black bodies. And I feel like that establishment should no longer exist. So when you ask me to walk in and continue to patronize that establishment, I feel some type of way. When you aren't making any moves to actually destroy and take that establishment's stronghold away from it, I feel some type of way.
I'm
not asking you to go and
keep in mind. Now keep in mind, and one of the things that Mr. Gossman said, and it's worth listening to, is do you blame the establishment, everybody who works there or patronizes there, for the actions of other patrons and two employees? So let me just finish the thought, because we're signing off at the same time. Matter of fact, I'm gonna come back to you. Hold the line. I'm gonna sign off and we'll come back and continue this conversation. 413-337-1867. For those who are listening on WTCC, we've got to sign off on the WTCC side, and we'll continue our conversation with our online streaming audience. So remember, on Wednesday, you need to be with me. I got DL Hughley with me on Wednesday. I got Rusty Jukes, the rapper, is going to be with me on Wednesday. And I got Reverend Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner on the Bishop's Barbecue, streaming live at 9 p.m. You really don't want to miss it. You want to be there. Until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember, God loves you, and so do I. For those in my online audience, hold tight. We're going to be right back.
I appreciate you taking my call, Bishop.
All right. So we're coming back. For those on the online audience, of course, you know we stream live on WTCC from 9 to 10 o'clock. And since we've been doing this remotely during the pandemic, we've continued beyond the 9 o'clock hour, because I don't have to pack up and leave the studio because my studio is now the man cave in my house until we get back into the studio, so we can give you a little extra time on it. So back to the caller. So the conversation is, do we move to get the whole bar closed down because of the actions of individuals, or do we move to make sure those individuals are held accountable? Now here's my thoughts on it. If that was an establishment where those types of actions happened on a regular basis, okay, and we're talking about this 2015 incident. If what happened that night happened regularly in that establishment, that black folks were regularly being beaten and treated abrasively and discriminated against, et cetera, I would be all for, let's shut the whole thing down. Let's shut the whole thing down. But if those are the individual actions of, and remember, most of the people involved in that weren't associated with the restaurant. They were just patrons that happened to frequent it. And should that establishment be held accountable for the actions of its patrons? And would we want to, if we owned a business, especially a bar or a club or something like that, where you don't know necessarily who you're drawing in there, and they came in there and did something, would you want your business to be shut down because of the actions of some folks that you have no control over? So that's the question that's out there. Caller, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
I think that I definitely think that's my question, but I think it goes even further, that like this place really is a bastion for white supremacy, and what is it doing for the black community? Like, that's the question for me. And why are we so concerned about shutting this one business down when there's so many others that can and are, opening?
Well, I don't think we're concerned.
I don't know why we think so much about this one.
I don't think it has anything to do with us thinking so much about this one. Our concern was addressing the issues with what happened there. Now, remember when that incident happened, the district attorney, after reviewing the investigation, the so-called investigation of the police department, decided not to bring charges against anyone. It was folks like us. It was like in the NAACP and other organizations who solicited the Department of Justice and the Attorney General's office to do an investigation because we weren't satisfied with the district attorney's decision that they weren't going to prosecute anyone. And it was the pressure that we put on other law enforcement agencies that precipitated the indictment of 14 people. That's us calling for accountability.
Right.
So I think that we are doing our due diligence. I don't think there's anybody who was necessarily lobbying for it to remain open or not remain open one way or another, but to hold the parties guilty in that incident accountable.
Right. Well, I just was thinking that that case alone is indicative of how much it really means to the city of Springfield, that you will continue to have this space open even afterwards, even after, again, knowing that this is a hovel for white supremacy.
Yeah, well, and that's problematic across the city. And see, here's where I see a disparity. My concern is when, for instance, when the mayor wanted to shut Aquarius down because of an incident that happened outside of the Aquarius that was unrelated to that establishment. When they wanted to shut down the kickback because fights that occurred at the kickback, yet people have been shot, stabbed, and murdered at the Mardi Gras, and you never moved on taking the Mardi Gras entertainment license. So my concern is establishments like that where you have continued actions over and over and over again, where you have a pattern of actions that occur that you shut down other establishments for, but you let that one stay open. Now, I'm not sure I'm not sure Nathan Bill has hit that threshold. I'm not sure we can point to this one got killed there, that one got beat there, this one got stabbed there, this one got beat there, and say that they have a sustained pattern of action that warrants them being shut down. There are establishments like that, like the Mardi Gras, and I'd be the first one if Nathan Bill reached that threshold to say, hey, why aren't you taking their entertainment license? Why aren't you shutting them down?
Okay. I mean, I think that that's something that they really are doing to the Black community. Like it could just be loud cars outside the bar, and they want to, file noise complaints and shut it down for that. I actually just moved here from Pittsburgh. You can see I got 412 area code, and they shut down a jazz bar, one of the oldest jazz bars in the city, because it was jazz music being put out of there. You know what I mean? And so you're talking about an establishment that is literally barring Black people from entering it, and you ain't gonna shut it down because it's a segregationist, establishment. I'm very confused that you would shut down a bar, you know what I mean, that is just playing music versus shutting down somebody that's literally barring Black people. I'm confused.
All right. I appreciate your call. Poignant questions. 413-337-1867. 413-337-1867. If you want to chime on the conversation, callers making some legitimate points. I think the as I stated, the real question is, are they repeat offenders? Is this a pattern of behavior? Is this something that is constantly happening at this establishment? And if it was, trust me, those who were involved in these recent negotiations, myself and the Pioneer Valley Project and counselors Whitfield and Hurst, we would be the first ones saying shut it down. So that's the question. 413-337-1867. And so our strategy really has to be what has been employed um, in so many movements, not just in the United States, but across the world, is an inside outside strategy. Um, it's not just about the noise making and all that, as I continue to say. Strategy is a plan. We've got to have a proposed course of action, um, um, an analysis of the current conditions. We've got to state what our desired goals are. What do we want at the end of this? At the end of this protest, what is it that we want to see happen? I mean, the primary focus on strategy is how. How do we work the transition between what currently is and what ought to be and what we want? What should this be, as opposed to what it is? And any effective strategy proposes how the existing consciousness, resources, and capacities can achieve a range of political ends. Those are conversations and strategies that are held behind the scenes. We cannot be lone rangers in justice work. That we're going to plan our own thing, do our own thing with our own people, and not include anybody else. That's not effective strategy. Strategy is trying to answer the hardest questions. What do we do next, and how do we do it, and what are the desired goals and outcomes? Um, you know, and so this inside outside is an approach to organizing and to movement building that emphasizes learning from and coordinating with various resistance movements that have political positions that are similar, and even those who have political positions that are not similar. When we came together um, last week, last Friday, we had folks in the room who are on completely polar opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of their political ideologies. But in order to bring about a positive change, we had to sit down together to make that happen. Um, and so, was it a good thing that the majority owner of that restaurant apologized to our community? I think it was. Does that atone for what was done? No, but that's what's happening through the court system. Those parties being held accountable. That's why we were so incensed that the police commissioner had the caucasity to reinstate those 5 officers, and why we demanded that they be resuspended. Was it a good thing that he took down that dress code and vowed never to put it up again? Yes, I think it was. Was it a good thing that he committed to work with our community to develop a dress code that was appropriate and that was non-offensive to us? I think it was. Was it a good thing that he committed to holding fundraisers to support Black businesses and to ensure that their hiring practices included Black people? I think that was a positive outcome. And was it a bonus and a positive outcome that a project that Councilor Tracy Whitfield is working on to do a Black Lives Matter mural on Court Street in front of City Hall is being paid for by that establishment? I think that was a positive thing. I think we got some very positive wins out of our negotiations, on top of having those 5 officers resuspended, on top of having the commitment to start an office of racial equity. I think we got some good outcomes from how we strategized around this Nathan Bill incident and issue. And of course, there's always going to be the question of, could we have done more? Should we have gotten better? But I tell you what, we've gotten a whole lot better than what we had as of a month ago, which was nothing. Okay. So I know we're going to have our critics. I know we're going to have those who are going to say we got bought, this, that, and the third. But that's cool. I'm used to criticism and I can deal with it, as well as the others can. But I think 30 years of advocacy, my work speaks for me in terms of whether or not I can be bought or not. And I think the work of the others that they have done and continue to do is speaking for them as well. And so, I know there's the crowd that says, the heck with them, burn it down, close them down, all of that. But Dr. King once said, if it's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, then we wind up with folk who are just blind and toothless at the end of the day. I think we all can come out of this with our sight and our teeth and do some positive things for our community. And so this inside outside strategy should be inclusive rather than an exclusive approach. It can't be me and mine and nobody else, what I want and nothing else. Negotiation is about compromise. Sometimes you have to compromise. In order to get what you want, you got to give a little to somebody else. It's a both and attitude. And only this can really help us to resolve these static binaries that divide us and oftentimes waste our energies. Because at the end of the day, you get a bunch of signs and you go out and protest and you scream and yell, burn it down. And then the next day they're back open for business, but they haven't changed their policies and their practices. What good were your efforts? You blew off some steam. You took some pictures that you can post on Instagram to say, look at me, the great activist that I am, but nothing changed. But if you can sit behind closed doors and negotiate, do your protest, and then at the end of the day, you have some actual changes that you can point to in policies and practice, then that was an effective. And that's what we got to understand. We're trying to change policies and practices. Sometimes we change attitudes. Often we don't change attitudes. But if we can change policies and practices, that's a win. That's a victory. I think it was a victory. It's an alternative. Inside outside is an alternative to the endless arguments and fragmentation that characterize our conventional pursuits of grievances when we're not willing to talk to folk who differ from us. And it's really the only useful strategy in developing and organizing mass movements, organizing coalitions, big tent revolutions. We gotta let other folk in the tent, y'all. Effective organizations regularly use strategic planning processes. And that's what we've got to do in our city. We can't sit off in our silos and think that our myopic viewpoint of how things ought to be are the only way to do things. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Bishop Swan. I just wanted to, first of all, commend just your efforts with moving the cause of Black people ahead and keeping it highlighted in the forefront. I was just wondering if you'll take a minute to kind of discuss the video that's in rotation right now of the African-American woman that was defacing the Black Lives Matter mural, saying Jesus matters. Since we're talking about just, collaboration, and I was looking at, also just the solidarity that's needed to continue to, drive our efforts forward.
Yeah. And
certain things like that sometimes begin to divide our efforts. So I was wondering if you had a second to kind of talk about that.
Sure. I think, and I posted the video of her in cuffs, saying Jesus matters and take back your country. And what I said in my caption is, This is the result of what whitenized Christianity has done to black minds. And that black minds are often incarcerated in a prison of self-hate that was brought about by the bastardization of religion that taught us that we were inferior and taught us to seek affirmation from our own oppressors. It's this whole Stockholm syndrome phenomenon where people begin to hold affection and want affirmation from those who hold them captive and who oppress them. I think this woman is a classic example of that, where we hate ourselves and we want to assimilate so much and be accepted in white society that we act against our own best interests, and many times utilizing religion as the justification. And in order to really drill down on this, we have to understand how, many times people tell me all the time, many of my 5% brothers, my Muslim brothers, and my Hebrew Israelite brothers and all tell me, Bishop, you're a conscious black man. You need to get out there white man's religion. And what I tell them is I follow a black radical revolutionary named Jesus who flipped over tables and whipped folk out of the temple because they took advantage of the oppressed. I serve a black revolutionary who said that the Spirit of the Lord was upon him because he anointed him to deal with the poor, the brokenhearted, the sick, the imprisoned, and the oppressed. How in the world could that be a white man's religion? Now, you can't take how white folks perverted Christianity, Christianized Christianity, and bastardized Christianity, and then say it's a white man's religion. It's a religion that originated in Africa. The first missionary was the Ethiopian eunuch who brought Christianity to Ethiopia. The oldest Christian church in the world is not in Rome; it's in Ethiopia. And so folk have really perverted Christianity so that its ties to white supremacy have even inundated the mind of black people who think that patriotism to America and singular issues like abortion and gay marriage are the only things that they should be concerned of, and social justice is somehow antithetical to the teachings of Christ. That's a perversion of our religion. And this woman she's a test study in what bastardized religion has done to the minds of black people. And I feel bad for her. I really do. Caller, you still there?
Yes, I'm still here. I have one more thing to ask.
Sure.
If it's okay.
Yeah.
Just this idea that Terry Crews is going around talking about black supremacy. That seems crazy within itself.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to put it out there, and see what you have to say about it. I'm sure you're going to say it's a lie altogether,
mm-hmm.
but I just want to, address where we stand on that.
All right. Absolutely. Thank you for your call. Terry Crews is in the sunken place. He needs to be rescued. Somebody needs to set off a flashlight. Let me see, do I got that thing with me? Yeah. Terry Crews is in the sunken place. Y'all, does it work? This is what y'all need to do for Terry. Y'all, I need somebody to find Terry, and I need y'all to get Terry out of the sunken place. Okay? We haven't even gotten to the point in America where we can agree that Black lives matter. Think about that just for a moment. We are arguing in America with white folk about whether or not our lives matter. And along comes this black man talking about we got to make sure we're not trying to make black lives better. Negro, can we get to matter first? Can we get full agreement that our lives matter? We can't even get to agreement that our lives matter. And this big old Debo looking dude talking about we don't want to make it black lives better because I got some white friends. No, you got a half white wife who's probably pushing this crazy narrative that you have. Terry is singing for his supper. He's part of the Butter Biscuit Brigade. He's in the sunken place. He's part of the Uncle Ruckus fraternity, and he's been doing this for a long time. No such thing as black supremacy in the United States, or as Maya Angelou put, in these yet to be United States of America. Trying to make an equivalency between white supremacy and black people saying our lives matter is insanity. You want to really pull out a false equivalency between white supremacists saying that black people are inferior, are not worthy to live, we want them out of our country, with black people saying we just want to live, we just want to matter. Are you really making that comparison, Terry? Terry is trying hard. He's trying hard to beat Candace Owens and the Hodge twins and Diamond and Silk for the Coon of the Year award. He's auditioning very hard for it, and he just might get it this year. I mean, a little more effort, and that's no easy feat to beat out a Candace Owens and a Brandon Tatum and a Larry Elder and a Diamond and Silk and a Ben Carson. It's no easy feat to beat these folk out for Coon of the Year. But Terry, I think right now is ahead in the polling. I think he's ahead in the polling. He want to make sure Black Lives Matter doesn't morph into Black Lives Better. Negro, can we get to matter? Can we get matter established? Because your wife's cousins in them are arguing about whether our lives matter, Negro. Cut it out. Cut it out. Y'all need to carry one of these around, because every now and then you got to get some of your people out of the sunken place. That's my spiel on Terry Cruz's foolishness. 413 337 1867. I got about 3 minutes left before I sign off the air. Listen, I want to invite you out to the Bishop's Barbecue this Wednesday. Listen, you don't want to miss this Wednesday. This Wednesday, I have a diverse panel, very diverse panel. I've got the Reverend Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, who used to be the executive director for the Congressional Black Caucus. She now runs the Skinner Institute in Washington, D.C. She is the one who sponsors and organizes the annual prayer breakfast for the Congressional Black Caucus to this day. Friend and colleague of mine. She's going to be on with me on Wednesday. Then I have the one and only Rusty Jukes. Now, it's a little edgy for some of y'all. He's got some profanity and stuff in his music for y'all sanctified folk. But you got to look beyond the four-letter words and hear the message. This brother brings forth a conscious message about Black empowerment, speaking truth to power through music like people used to do, like a Public Enemy and others used to do. Rusty is doing that, and he's going to be on. You can look him up, check him out, and then, of course, probably needs no introduction from most of you all. I got the one and only D.L. Hughley, comedian, author, conscious brother, who's really been speaking truth to power and using his platform to bring out those issues of concern in our community. And so, listen, y'all, I got a slamming panel of three on this Wednesday. I stream live at 9 p.m. You're invited to the cookout. Bring a friend with you. As usual, there will be no raisins in the potato salad. It will be just truth served hot off the grill. So listen, brothers and sisters, y'all don't want to miss the Bishop's barbecue. Bring your own drinks, bring your own paper plates, all that kind of stuff. But it's going to be slamming. It's going to be slamming. Matter of fact, go on my page and share the link with folk right now. Go on and share that link. Let people know that the barbecue is going to be off the chain for real, for real. Okay? All right. And as usual, on Sunday, we stream live at 11 a.m. from the Spring of Hope Church of God in Christ. I love your family. You all be good. Stay safe in this pandemic. Don't go too crazy now. I see y'all out at the beaches and stuff like that. Y'all need to be safe. There's another article that came out saying there's another wave of coronavirus deaths that is imminent. You don't want to be one of them. You don't want your family members to be one of them. So whatever you do out there, stay safe. And until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember, God loves you, and so do I. Peace. Blessings.
Say his name. Jermaine Reed. Won't you say his name? Philip White. Say his name. Philip White. Say his name. Philip White. Say his name. Philip White. Won't you say his name? Say his name. 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 Eric Garner. Say his name. Eric Garner. Say his name. Eric Garner. Won't you say his name? Trayvon Martin. Say his name. Trayvon Martin. Say his name. Trayvon Martin. Say his name. Trayvon Martin. Won't you say his name? Sean Bell. Say his name. Sean Bell. Say his name. Sean Bell. Say his name. Sean Bell. Won't you say his name? Say his name. 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 Won't you say his name? Freddie Gray, say his name. Freddie Gray, say his name. Freddie Gray, say his name. Freddie Gray, won't you say his name? Ayanna Jones, say her name. Ayanna Jones, say her name. Ayanna Jones, say her name. Ayanna Jones, won't you say her name? Sandra Bland, say her name. Sandra Bland, say her name. Sandra Bland, say her name. Sandra Bland, won't you say her name? Say her name. 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 Won't you say her name? Kimani Gray, say his name. Kimani Gray, say his name. Kimani Gray, say his name. Kimani Gray, won't you say his name? John Crawford, say his name. John Crawford, say his name. John Crawford, say his name. John Crawford, won't you say his name? Michael Brown, say his name. Michael Brown, say his name.